The water was red before we even got halfway across. Not muddy red, not rust red, blood red, like someone had dumped 1,000 gallons of paint into the Han River and we were rowing through it. Jimmy Santos, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, 1st Marine Division. I crossed the Han River on September 20th, 1950, 5 days after Incheon. They're interviewing us now, 3 years later, asking us to talk about it while it's still fresh, while we still remember. I'll never stop remembering. I grew up in Los Angeles, East L.A., Mexican neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. My old man was a brachero during the Depression, came up from Sonora to pick fruit in California. Met my mom, stayed, built a life. He worked construction. Wanted me to finish high school, maybe learn a trade, something stable. I dropped out junior year and enlisted. 17 years old, needed my parents' signature. My mother cried. My father just looked at me with these tired eyes and signed the paper. "You'll learn," is all he said. I didn't know what he meant. He'd never talked about his war, the revolution in Mexico, fighting with Villa. Never told me what he'd seen, what he'd done. Just worked his construction jobs and came home quiet every night. Now I understand. Some things you can't explain. You just have to live them, or survive them, or fail to. Boot camp at San Diego. 13 weeks of hell. They broke us down and built us back up as Marines. Taught us to shoot, to fight, to follow orders without thinking. Made us believe we were invincible. Made us believe in the Corps, in each other, in something bigger than ourselves. Then Korea happened and they shipped us out before we'd finished training. I was 19 years old, had never been outside California. Suddenly I'm on a transport ship headed to a war I didn't understand in a country I'd never heard of. We landed at Incheon on D-Day +2. The beach was still a mess. Destroyed landing craft, burned out vehicles, bodies waiting to be collected. We could hear the fighting inland, artillery, small arms fire, the constant background noise of war. They rushed us through Incheon toward Seoul. The North Koreans were dug in around the capital. Our job was to cross the Han River, establish a bridgehead on the north bank, push into the city. Simple, they said. Textbook operation. Nobody mentioned the river was 400 yards wide. Nobody mentioned the North Koreans had the north bank fortified with machine guns and artillery. Nobody mentioned we'd be crossing in broad daylight in small boats that couldn't stop a rifle round. Or maybe they did mention it, and I wasn't listening. Hard to remember now what we were told versus what we learned the hard way. My squad leader was Sergeant McKinney, Tennessee boy, tobacco chewing, mean as a snake, but fair. He'd fought in the Pacific, Okinawa, saw the worst of it. He knew what we were walking into. "Keep your head down," he told us the night before the crossing. "Don't bunch up in the boats. Row fast. And if the guy next to you gets hit, keep rowing. Don't stop. You stop, you die." We thought he was being dramatic. He wasn't. September 20th, 1950. Dawn, cold morning, fog hanging over the river. We assembled on the south bank with our assault boats, these flimsy plywood things that looked like they'd fall apart if you looked at them wrong. Each boat held about a dozen Marines plus an engineer to steer. I was in the third wave, had to watch the first two waves launch before our turn came. Maybe that was worse, watching other guys go first, seeing what was waiting for them. The first wave pushed off at 0630. They were halfway across when the North Koreans opened up. Machine guns from bunkers on the north bank, mortars dropping into the river, artillery from the hills beyond. The whole north shore just erupted in fire. I watched boats disintegrate, just come apart in explosions of wood and water and bodies. Watched Marines bail out, trying to swim, getting cut down in the water or pulled under by their gear. Watched the fog turn red. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered next to me. McKinney slapped the back of his head. "Shut up. Get ready. We're next." The second wave went. More boats, more Marines, more targets. The North Koreans knew the drill now, knew where to aim. The casualties were worse. Maybe half the boats made it to the far shore. Third wave! Mount up! We climbed into our boats, 12 of us plus the engineer, a kid named Patterson who looked about 15. My rifle squad, Rodriguez, Wilson, Kowalski, Martinez, Jackson. Guys I'd trained with, shipped out with, fought through Incheon with, guys who felt like brothers. Remember, McKinney said, settling into the bow. Fast and steady. Don't stop rowing no matter what happens. We pushed off. The current caught us immediately, trying to drag us downstream. Patterson fought the rudder, keeping us pointed at the far shore. We rowed, all of us rowing in unison, like we'd practiced. The machine guns found us at 50 yards. The rounds made these whipping sounds as they passed overhead, then cracking sounds as they hit the water around us, then wet, meaty sounds as they hit Marines. Wilson took the first hit, right in the chest. He just grunted and fell backward off his seat, dead before he hit the bottom of the boat. "Keep rowing!" McKinney was screaming. "Don't stop! Keep rowing!" Rodriguez got hit next, shoulder. He screamed but kept rowing, blood pouring down his arm. A mortar landed 10 feet to our left. The explosion threw water over us, rocked the boat. My ears were ringing. Couldn't hear anything but this high-pitched whine. The boat in front of us took a direct hit, just ceased to exist. 1 second it was there, Marines rowing hard. Next second, just debris and bodies floating in red water. I kept rowing, didn't think, didn't feel. Just pulled the oar through water that was getting redder, thicker, harder to row through, blood and bodies and pieces of boats all mixed together. Halfway across, the worst part. Too far from either shore, completely exposed, just sitting ducks on a shooting range. "Faster!" McKinney yelled. "Row faster!" Kowalski's head exploded. I was looking right at him when it happened. Sniper round, probably. 1 second he was rowing, face set in concentration. Next second his head just came apart and he slumped over. I threw up. Couldn't help it. Leaned over the side of the boat and vomited while machine gun rounds chewed up the water around me. "Santos, row, goddammit." McKinney was right in my face. "You want to die?" "Row!" exclamation mark. I rowed, pulled the oar with shaking hands, arms screaming, lungs burning. The far shore seemed impossibly distant, like we were rowing in place, making no progress, just dying slowly in the middle of this red river. Martinez got hit, back of the neck. He made this gurgling sound and fell forward. Jackson caught him, tried to keep him upright, but there was blood everywhere. So much blood. Patterson was crying. Still steering but crying, tears streaming down his face, saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," over and over. A shell landed behind us, close enough that I felt the heat on my back. The blast threw me forward into the Marine in front of me. When I looked back, our boat had a hole in the stern, water pouring in. "Bail," McKinney ordered. "Someone bail while the rest row." Jackson started scooping water with his helmet. Rodriguez kept rowing one-armed. I rowed. That's all I could do. Just keep pulling the oar through blood-red water while friends died around me. 300 yards, 200. The north bank getting closer but also more dangerous. I could see the machine gun positions now, muzzle flashes in the bunkers. Could see North Korean soldiers on the shore waiting for us. Another boat to our right capsized, just flipped over, dumping Marines into the river. They were wearing full combat gear, rifle, ammunition, grenades, pack, 70 pounds of equipment pulling them down. I watched them sink, watched them struggle and thrash, and then just disappear under the red water. 100 yards, close enough to see individual soldiers, close enough to see them aiming at us, close enough to see their faces. McKinney was up, M1 in hand, firing at the shore. "Keep rowing." "Almost there. Keep dash, dash." He jerked, stumbled, fell into the bottom of the boat, shot through the stomach. He looked surprised, looked down at the hole in his gut, blood pumping out between his fingers. "Sarge!" Rodriguez was yelling. "Sarge!" "Fuck," McKinney said. Just that. Then he passed out. 50 yards. The boat was wallowing now, heavy with water and blood and bodies. Patterson had stopped crying, stopped making any sound at all. Just steered with this blank expression. Shock, probably. 20 yards. I could see the reeds at the shoreline. Could see the mud of the bank. Could see North Korean soldiers running toward the water's edge to meet us. 10 yards. The boat scraped bottom. We'd made it. We'd crossed the river. Then the real hell started. We bailed out into waist-deep water. 5 of us left from 12. McKinney was still breathing, but unconscious. We dragged him onto the muddy bank, taking fire the whole way. The North Shore was chaos. Marines from other boats trying to establish positions. North Koreans trying to push us back into the river. Hand-to-hand fighting in some places. Artillery still falling. Machine guns still firing. Rodriguez and I dragged McKinney behind a small berm, some kind of flood wall. Not much cover, but better than nothing. Patterson collapsed next to us, gasping. Jackson was somewhere to our left, firing at muzzle flashes. A corpsman came sliding in next to us. Kid named Thompson, couldn't have been 20. He took one look at McKinney and shook his head. "I can't do anything for him here. He needs surgery. Need to get him to an aid station." "Where?" Rodriguez asked. His shoulder was still bleeding, but he'd tied it off with a bandage. "Back across the river." We all stared at him. Back across that death trap we'd just barely survived. "He'll die before we get him there," Thompson said. "But he'll die here for sure. Your choice." There was no choice. McKinney was our squad leader. More than that, he was our friend. We'd been through Inchon together, through the fight to Seoul, through everything. You don't leave a Marine behind. "We'll take him," I said. But first we had to secure the bridgehead. Had to push the North Koreans back far enough that the engineers could bring across the pontoons for the heavy equipment. Had to establish a perimeter so the rest of the division could cross. We fought for 6 hours on that riverbank. Pushed forward yard by yard through the reeds and mud. Lost Marines to snipers, to machine guns, to artillery. The North Koreans counterattacked twice. Both times we threw them back, but barely. By noon, we'd advanced maybe 200 yards from the river. The engineers were working on the pontoon bridge under constant fire. Casualties were mounting. The aid station on the south bank was overwhelmed. McKinney was still alive, barely. Conscious now, groaning with every breath. The stomach wound was bad, intestines perforated probably. He needed real surgery, real doctors. He had maybe hours, maybe less. "Get me across," he whispered. "Don't want to die in this shithole." We got him onto a boat headed back south with other wounded. Rodriguez went with him. His shoulder wound had gotten infected, was swelling up bad. That left me, Patterson, and Jackson from our original squad of 12. 3 out of 12. 25%. Better odds than some boats, worse than others. We kept fighting. Pushed into Seoul over the next few days. House-to-house combat that made the river crossing look clean by comparison. Lost Jackson on the 3rd day. Booby trap in a building. Patterson went down to sniper fire on the 5th. By the time we secured Seoul on September 25th, I was the only one left from my squad. The only one who'd crossed the Han River and made it all the way through. I didn't feel lucky. I felt guilty. They pulled us out of Seoul in early October. Replacements came in. Fresh Marines who hadn't seen combat, didn't know what they were walking into. I was supposed to help train them, show them the ropes, pass on what I'd learned. I couldn't do it. Couldn't look at these kids with their clean uniforms and hopeful faces and tell them anything that wouldn't sound like lies. Keep your head down. Follow orders. Watch each other's backs. All the things McKinney told us, all the things that didn't save Wilson or Kowalski or Martinez, they made me a sergeant. field promotion. Put me in charge of a squad of these new guys. 8 Marines who looked to me for leadership like I'd looked to McKinney. I was 20 years old, had been in Korea for 2 months. Already I'd seen more death than most people see in a lifetime. The Chinese came in November, millions of them, pouring across the Yalu River. Suddenly we weren't pushing north anymore. We were running south, fighting for our lives, trying not to get surrounded and destroyed. The Chosin Reservoir. You've probably heard about it. Marine division trapped in the mountains, 30 below zero, Chinese attacking in human waves. The newspapers called it a strategic withdrawal. We called it a fighting retreat. Both were nice ways of saying we got our asses kicked. I lost my new squad at Chosin. All 8 of them froze to death, shot, blown up by mortars, gone in 2 weeks. Didn't even have time to learn all their names. That's when something broke inside me. Some connection between action and meaning, between suffering and purpose. We'd crossed the Han River, taken Seoul, pushed north to the Chinese border. Now we were fighting our way back south, giving up everything we'd bled for, dying for the same ground we'd already died for once. What was the point? What were we doing here? Who were we helping? What were we winning? I couldn't answer those questions. Still can't. We made it out of Chosin. I made it out. Got frostbite on my feet, some shrapnel in my leg, but I survived. They put me on a hospital ship to Japan. Warm beds, hot food, nurses who spoke English. Should have felt like heaven. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that boat on the Han River, watching Wilson die, watching Kowalski's head explode, rowing through red water while McKinney bled out and Patterson cried and North Korean machine guns cut us to pieces. The doctors said I had combat fatigue, said I needed rest, gave me pills that didn't work and advice I couldn't follow. You did your duty, one doctor told me. You should be proud. You're a hero. I wasn't a hero. Heroes died in the river. Heroes died on the North Bank. Heroes froze to death at Chosin. I was just someone who happened to survive when better Marines didn't. That's not heroism. That's just luck. Bad luck, probably. They sent me home in February 1951, medical discharge. The frostbite had damaged my feet permanently. Couldn't march anymore, couldn't run. No use to the Corps. So they pinned a Purple Heart on me, gave me my discharge papers, and put me on a plane to California. I landed at Travis Air Force Base on a Tuesday morning. No parade, no welcome home ceremony. Just a bus to Los Angeles and a cab to East L.A., and suddenly I was standing in front of my parents' house like the last 5 months hadn't happened. My mother cried when she saw me. My father just nodded, shook my hand. Didn't ask about the war. Didn't ask about Korea. Just said, "You're home now. That's what matters." But I wasn't home. My body was home. The rest of me was still in that boat on the Han River, still rowing through red water, still watching friends die. I tried to adjust. Got a job at a warehouse. Lasted 3 weeks. Couldn't handle the supervisor yelling orders. Sounded too much like combat, like artillery, like someone screaming that we were all going to die. Tried going back to school. Lasted 2 days. Couldn't sit in a classroom. Couldn't focus on math or history or English when my brain kept playing the same scenes over and over. Started drinking in '52. Not a lot at first. Just enough to sleep without dreaming. But the dreams always came back, so I drank more. Then I was drinking to function, to get through the day, to quiet the screaming in my head. I got arrested in '53, drunk and disorderly. The cop was a vet, World War II, Europe. He looked at my discharge papers, at my Purple Heart, and let me go with a warning. "Get help," he said, "before it's too late." Maybe it was already too late. Maybe it was too late the moment we pushed off from the south bank of the Han River. Maybe I died in that boat and didn't realize it. The VA tried to help, sent me to doctors who asked about my experiences, about my nightmares, about my drinking. I told them what they wanted to hear, that I was getting better, that the dreams were fading, that I'd stopped drinking. All lies. I couldn't get better. The dreams never faded. I couldn't stop drinking because sober meant remembering, and remembering meant seeing Wilson die and Kowalski's head explode and McKinney bleeding out and the water turning red, red, red. I'm 22 years old. Same age some people are just graduating college, starting careers, getting married, building lives. I should have my whole future ahead of me. Instead, I'm sitting in a VA hospital being interviewed about a river crossing 3 years ago, trying to explain what it felt like to row through blood while friends died around me. Trying to explain why I can't sleep, can't work, can't function like a normal human being. The interviewer asks if there's anything I want people to know about Korea, about the Han River, about what we went through. I don't know what to say. What can I tell them that they'd understand? That they'd believe? That war isn't what they show in the movies? That crossing a river under fire isn't dramatic or heroic? It's just terrifying and random and pointless? That you don't come home from war? That part of you stays in that boat forever, rowing through red water, watching friends die, knowing you're next? That I'm still there, still rowing, still 20 yards from shore, but never getting closer? The interviewer is waiting for an answer, looking at me with these expectant eyes, pen hovering over notepad, ready to write down whatever wisdom I can offer. The water was red, I finally say, before we even got halfway across. That's what I remember most, how red the water was. The interviewer writes it down, nods, moves on to the next question. But that's not what I meant. I meant the water is still red, will always be red. Every time I close my eyes, every time I see water, every time I remember, it's red. My father was right. I learned. I learned what he learned in Mexico, what every soldier in every war learns eventually. Some things you can't explain. You just survive them, or you don't. And surviving isn't the same as living. McKinney died in Japan. The stomach wound got infected. He lasted 2 weeks after we got him off that riverbank. I got a letter from his widow. She thanked me for trying to save him. Said he talked about our squad before he died. Said he was proud of us. I couldn't write back. What could I say? That I was there when he got shot. That I dragged him through mud and blood and got him across the river, and it still wasn't enough. That he died anyway, and I'm still here, and I don't know why. Rodriguez made it home. Last I heard, he's in Texas, working construction, has a family, can't use his left arm properly. The shoulder wound never healed right. But he's living, functioning, somehow making it work. I'm happy for him. Jealous, too. I don't know how he does it, how he lives with the memories, how he sleeps, how he exists in a world that feels impossible after what we saw. I'm still trying to figure it out, still trying to find a way to live with the red water and the dead friends and the guilt of being the one who survived. Still rowing, still 20 yards from shore, still hearing the machine guns and the screaming and McKinney telling us to keep rowing. Don't stop, keep rowing. Still alive, still dead, still crossing the Han River in my head over and over forever. The water never stops being red.